I was trying to show these little babies how to high five because it's really cute when kids learn it. And some of them looked like they maybe wanted to learn and were close to doing it, so I felt good about it until my son started high fiving this one kid in the head repeatedly.
You're listening to Dadsplaining, a weekly chronicle of all the weirdest, messiest, grossest, and funniest parts of fatherhood, hosted by two first-time dads. I'm Jesse.
And I'm Brandon.
And this week, we are going to be looking back at topics we've covered in previous episodes over the past year, looking at things that we've succeeded at, things we failed at, things that are just still hard to do, and kind of grading ourselves a little bit, but also cutting ourselves a little slack. But before we get into all of that, Brandon, if our listeners want to reach out to us with questions, comments, stories, or just a chat, where can they find us?
You can check us out on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at Dadsplaining Podcast. Please like and follow us there. You can send us a note directly at dadsplainingpodcast@gmail.com. And then every week you can catch this and every episode anywhere you get your podcasts. Quick little disclaimer, something we hadn't really been talking about too much. Don't forget to subscribe.
That's right.
On whatever app you are getting your podcast from. That way every single week it's just coming in automatically.
Exactly. And new to the roster of our social channels, we are now establishing a sort of an archive of our episodes on YouTube. So if you are a person who listens to audio primarily on YouTube, I do that a lot at home, just search for Dadsplaining on YouTube and you're going to find us there. I'm going to start archiving all of our old episodes and uploading our new ones too. So little note there. So Brandon, what's new at home?
Well, we almost had another spate of the daycare virus fun. My son caught it, and then for some reason, my wife and I survived the scare. So we got very lucky. But yeah, last weekend, he came home on a Friday, of course, no less. And like it promptly threw up on the way home. So that means in the car seat, all that good stuff.
Oh my gosh, dude.
Got home. Seemed okay, and then about an hour later, threw up again. At that point, he was pretty much just done.
Yeah.
He just kind of gave up on the day. He was exhausted. I mean, rightfully so. And so we've just been like on pins and needles being like, oh my God, who's going to get it? How soon is it going to happen? What's going to go on? Because this happened several months ago. It was very common, like daycare bugs going around. It's like the flu, but for people who have kids in daycare, same kind of thing. Like the season just happens, right? And we were down for the count for like an entire weekend. Everyone in the family got it. My wife's mother got it because she came over to play with Noah while we were incapacitated. But somehow we survived this time. The worst that seems to have happened was, had a little bit of like tummy aches for my wife and I, and then she's kind of picked up a little bit of a cold, but like nothing at all related to the nausea or any of that so far. I'm knocking on wood. It's been a week now. So, I don't know, we got very lucky. It seemed to be like a very mild touch, but just, PSA for all the kids out there in daycare, just watch out for it. Something I wish that we'd probably done, but I mean, it's really hard to pull this off, is they did tell us about a day or two before our son actually got sick that this was kind of going around. Probably would have been a good idea to pull him out of daycare and keep him home for a day or two just to kind of let it pass, because, I mean, it really is just like, it literally just makes the rounds to the daycare. Like one kid gets it, then the next day a couple more kids get it, then the next day 3 or 4 kids get it, and then our son eventually got it. So, I mean, it's tough to pull it off with work and all those things, but I mean, if you can stomach it, that's probably a good thing to try and do next time around.
Oh, yeah. I know what goes through your mind because it goes through my mind, too. You've got your sick kid at home, and then you're like, okay, he's feeling a little bit better.
Yeah.
How long do I really have to wait? How many days do I need to stay home from work before I can get him back in daycare and get back to normal life? Like, it's something that all parents struggle with, but, like, really, like, do as much as you can, because you'll kind of save yourself a headache, when they get sick again or when they get another kid sick and then you get blamed for it or something like that.
Yeah, that's a good point. It was kind of a mild strain. Like he got everything done before he went to sleep, and then he slept completely through the night, which I kind of assumed if it was like really bad, he'd be up all throughout the night and kind of having recurring issues. And so we just kind of gave it 24 hours. And then we kind of broke out of our cocoon and we like started going back to normal life on the weekend. But it was, Friday night to Saturday night basically. And then we introduced him to other people. I hear a lot that like 48 hours is usually a pretty good rule of thumb. Like certainly if it's been like a really bad situation. But, if you're trying to kind of push the needle, because, I mean, nobody wants to lose their weekend. We didn't want to lose our weekend. We didn't want him to have to stay at home all that long.
Exactly.
So we tried to do 24 hours.
Yeah, that's probably a fair amount, and that's the amount that my daycare recommends as well.
Yeah, there you go. What's going on with you guys, Jesse?
It's been a pretty normal week. Nothing crazy going on. We're still potty training David.
Right.
He's still doing pretty good about sitting down on his little kid potty and actually going after we give him a few minutes to read a book. But we are still kind of struggling with him going potty in the bathtub because he usually goes right from potty to bath every night.
Okay.
And I guess he doesn't leave it all in the potty. I guess he holds on to some of it. And trying to figure out how to break him of that. To be honest, I haven't done any research. I probably should do a little Googling. But if anyone listening has any tips on the potty training front about how do you keep your kid from going, after they've gone, let me know. Because we had the situation last night where he peed in the tub, and then I get him out of the tub and go into the bedroom to put his diaper on after bath time, and then he pees on the changing table, which he hasn't done in weeks and weeks.
Yeah.
So really not really sure where to go there. On the bright side, he's also learned to wash his hands.
Awesome.
Yeah, my wife has, she's a genius on these things. She's gotten a stool for him to climb up to the bathroom sink, as well as an automatic soap dispenser where all he has to do is hold his hand underneath it.
Awesome.
And an extender on the faucet. It's like this rubber thing. It's like a little ramp that the water will then flow out of the faucet down the ramp, and it's a lot closer to his hands because his arms are so short,
Right.
So he's loving that. He'll climb right up on his own. He gets obsessed with a soap dispenser, so I have to turn it off.
That seems like a challenge, yeah.
Because it makes a fun noise. So he'll hold his hand underneath it, he'll get the foam soap, and then he'll just go right back to it. So I have to turn it off. And the cutest thing is that it makes a noise, like sort of a grinding mechanical noise. Exactly, a buzzing noise. And so when he does it and it's turned off so he can't get more soap, he'll make the buzzing noise on his own. It's the most adorable thing.
That's excellent.
Yeah, so we're really loving that, kind of balancing we're struggling with the potty time, but he's kind of gained in this other zone. And then, a little personal note. Last week we talked about health and, how to stay on top of your health as you get older. Not doing perfect in that area, but something that I kind of stepped on the stool this morning and realized that I had finally reached sort of my target weight. I've been within like 5 pounds of that for the past 6 months. And so going to the gym twice a week, I should be going more.
Yeah.
But that has kind of paid off a little bit for me. So to all the dads and moms out there that have been thinking about kind of getting back into fitness now that you've had a kid, go ahead and do it. You don't have to do it every single day to get results. Just do something, do what works for you, and kind of be consistent with it. And hopefully, you'll get some results, without having to wait too long.
And I haven't worked out at all this week, except yesterday I finally did it.
There you go.
I went out, I jogged, nearly died. It was a close call. I thought I was going to have to find me in the middle of the park where I was running.
Man.
There was no one around. It was fine. And that's just because I'm totally out of shape, and I'm planning to try to do it again today.
Good,
so
man.
we're going to get caught up, guys. We're going to do this.
Exactly. What time of day are you going running?
Well, I'm sticking with kind of what we talked about last night, the evening stuff. Yesterday, just kind of perfect storm worked out. I got there in like the early evening, and so I was kind of like the only one out in the park. I kind of got out of work a little early and just kind of went to do a little jog because I like really wanted to get it in. It was like my thing for the day. I was like, we are doing this.
Check that box.
I know. So, I'm going to probably be more of a nighttime runner because I was probably what happened yesterday. It was like 105,000
it was literally triple
degrees.
digits last week.
And so
last night.
I was trying to run in like 100-degree heat. That was probably a bad idea.
Yeah, maybe. So on to this week's topic. Brandon and I looked back at the past. It's been 48 odd episodes now that we've done so far on this podcast.
Have they been odd episodes or is it just about 48?
I mean, we're odd.
Yeah.
And there are episodes. So they're odd episodes. So we kind of looked back at the topics we've covered, lessons we've learned, tips we've shared, and we're kind of going to spend a few minutes today talking about where we're succeeding, where we're struggling, what is just plain hard to do, no matter how hard you try or what you do right or wrong.
Yep.
And so, Brandon, I'm going to throw it to you first. What's the first topic on your mind today?
All right. Well, we've got a couple different episodes where we touched on the topic of food in general. I'm going to take us back to near the very beginning. We had an episode in, I want to say November of last year, where we talked about food, the 4-letter word.
Oh, yeah.
So not the bad words that are 4 letters, but food is kind of a bad 4-letter word in the early going. And we kind of focused a lot on the more baby, young infant side of things, where it was pouches and things of that nature. And this is how we're going to go in this episode. We're going to call ourselves out. So on that episode, you will hear these wonderful tones of my voice, and I was going hard advocacy passion for what we called baby-led weaning.
Oh, yeah.
So the idea here was that if you put your kids near you while they're eating, they will naturally get interested and start going for some of your food. A lot of people this works for. A lot of kids just take to food. My son did not at all. We are still struggling with getting him interested in eating. So it was a total fail on our side with the baby-led weaning. He did not go for it whatsoever. Very few things have worked for us.
Yeah.
So if you go back and listen to that advice, let's just say that that's general advice. Let's just pretend that anytime I give advice on the show, it's general advice, and it's just a total crapshoot if it ever works out for me, because we are still kind of working on how do we gonna get our son in the right moment almost, because like so many things can go wrong with the feeding, and it's been kind of a struggle to get him interested in it, and he's just not been one of those kids that will like take from your plate, which is kind of the whole thought process here. So I'm just going to call that one a big fail for us.
Yeah, but you told me before we started recording that you and your wife Austin learned something recently that has maybe kind of made things easier on you.
We did, and we have a couple different episodes. So we talked a little bit more recently, I think back in May of this year, we had a different episode about eating. And it was under the title of Parenting Disagreements, because we had gotten to such a point, clearly, from November of last year to May of this year, my wife and I have been struggling. And we had gotten to a point where we were literally disagreeing about what to do next, because it was such a hot topic of conversation and such a challenge for us. It's like, what do we do? The good part about that episode that totally holds water is that I was recommending to get a mediator and at the doctor, like go talk to them about what to do. And so we actually just recently, my wife read, I want to say it's an article or a study or something of that nature, and she got a couple of good tips for how to make kids feel comfortable when eating. And this is more so for the kids who are trying to eat solid foods, so not really related to babies who are on bottle feeding or breastfeeding or anything like that. And it broke down into a couple of key things. They like to sit at those low kid tables that you might see at daycare or at school, because they like to be in a position where they're kind of able to feel and touch the ground. Like in a high chair, they're elevated, they're up in the air. It's just kind of a weirder experience for some kids. On those little kid tables, they're seated and their feet are on the ground. They like that. And part of the reason is that if they're eating and they feel like they're done, sometimes there can be a bit of friction with them telling you they're done, them throwing things when they're in their high chair because they want to get out, but they can't get themselves out. If they're seated on the ground, they can just stand up and walk away. How brilliant is that?
That makes so much sense.
They can just get up from a meal. Like you and I, we would get up and throw in the towel if we're full.
Yeah, it's I guess like by comparison, if we as adults were seated at a table that was 10 feet off the ground, and we weren't able to get out of our chairs if we wanted to, that I could see how that could cause some discomfort and anxiety.
Exactly, and the kids don't understand why they can't get whatever they want. So giving them the autonomy is kind of a big part of it. Second thing, they do like still the same kind of thought process of eating with others. So like if you can sit with them around the table, even if you're not eating, just kind of being with them, they like the company. Is another piece of thing. And then one that was also really big was giving them small amounts of food at a time. So if you prepare some food, I would say pull out a smaller portion of it, put that on the table or a plate for them, and then keep the rest in reserve. This way, they don't get intimidated by how much food that you're putting in front of them. They don't feel anxiety about being like, oh, I have to eat all of this, or like, wow, this is a crap ton of food, or I don't know about this, I'm unsure. It kind of lets them, again, be in control, and what they can do is they can eat those couple bites, and if they want more, guess what? They'll ask for more food. But if you give them like 20 pieces of something and they eat 2 or 5 and then they throw the rest away, you might feel like you failed, but maybe that's as much as they wanted.
Right, and that I could see how that could also lead to less wasted food, because this has happened plenty of times with David where we'll give him a plate of food and, one day he loves that dish, be it chicken pot pie or, pot roast or some other kind of dish like that. The next night he'll hate it. And if we give him a plate full of it and all he does is stick his, grubby little hands all over it and play with it and then throw it, that's wasted food. I'm not going to eat that. Well, sometimes I will eat it if it's a really, something really, really good.
Hey, I've picked it up off the floor many times and tried to feed it back to my son.
Hey. Nobody's perfect, but I totally see what you mean.
Yeah. So that was, we've done this for one night. So again, I'm not going to do this check-in a year from now and call this a fail. Maybe that will happen, but like it worked out pretty well. We tried it for the first time last night. So fingers crossed, just a couple of tips for you guys. Jesse, where are you going to take us back in the archives?
Okay, so I'm going to go back to our episode on childproofing.
Okay.
I was listening to that actually just this morning, and we were talking about different things that we have done and different things that we were in the process of doing and figuring out how to do for childproofing. I think This I can't remember exactly how far away this was, but it was. I think my son was 13 months old, so it was, we'll say, 10 months ago.
Would you know, I wrote it down. This was back in January. We were talking about this.
All right, there you go. So at the time, we had sort of halfway baby-proofed the downstairs. We'd plugged in all the outlets. We had installed a baby gate at the bottom of the stairs, but not at the top of the stairs.
Yep.
8 or 9 months later, we're not that much farther along. For the main reason being that David had usually spent most of his time downstairs up until the past couple of months, when he's gotten more mobile. So I think I'd mentioned that we were going to buy a certain kind of lock for the cabinets in the kitchen. I didn't mention this, but after we had recorded that, we tried that lock, and it just did not work. It was some kind of cheapo thing. So instead, we bought the kind of locks that you guys have in your kitchen, the magnetic locks.
There it is. I think it's safety first.
Yeah, it's something like that. They're really cool. It's like a magnetic key, so you can kind of leave them like on the fridge, the dishwasher, whatever, and then you take it off, and then you find the magnet on the other side of the door, and that's how you unlock it. That has worked wonders in the kitchen.
Awesome.
David actually loves playing with those keys. So,
oh yeah, totally.
And they're big, so they're not easy to lose. So he'll pull them off the dishwasher and kind of, because we have 4 of them, he'll kind of stick them together and then throw them and then laugh when they hit the ground. And, they're not going to break or anything, I don't think.
Nah.
So he has fun with it, but he also will not get into the cabinets. Where we have not yet progressed is installing those upstairs. So in our bathroom cabinets, especially the bathroom that he uses. That's something that I really need to get on top of, buying some more and installing those, because he's spending a lot more time in that bathroom now.
Okay.
We also haven't installed a baby gate at the top of the stairs, because he still doesn't run around much upstairs. And now that he's learned to crawl up the stairs on his own, I'm a little nervous about how, if that's that extra hurdle at the top of the stairs, how is he going to handle that?
Yeah.
But I mean, really, that's unfounded. He'll figure it out, and then it'll keep him safer up there too. So that's something that I need to call myself out on.
Yeah.
I got some work to do there.
Nice.
So all in all, I'm doing all right. There's more I could be doing. Probably I'm behind the 8 ball a little bit, but we're making a little bit of progress.
Yeah. One interesting thing that we found with childproofing, I don't think we had even thought about this as a possibility, but our son, like all kids, got really interested in stairs and climbing them. We're in a bit of a unique situation where we don't actually use our upstairs of our house, so there's literally no reason for him to ever be upstairs, and he never spends any time up there. We only go up there to do the laundry, but he loves climbing the stairs, and we were just like, okay, we focused first on it being like a discipline thing where we would just tell him, no, don't do that.
Yeah.
We would pick him up if he started climbing and put him back on the floor and things like that. What worked was putting a baby gate up. It just eliminated the intrigue for him completely. And it's like overnight, I just continue to be amazed how kids will literally just change overnight if you kind of figure out what works for them.
Yeah.
And he just does not engage with the stairs whatsoever. He doesn't hang on the gate. He doesn't like tussle with it, being like, I want to get to those stairs. He just like completely ignores it now and just goes around it. And it's just like childproofing. Not just for the childproofing, because of course that's important with the baby gate, but almost as a way of like eliminating things of interest. Like if there are cabinets that you're just tired of him getting into, yes, for the childproofing, but like do it earlier maybe than you might have thought to, or give you the kick in the pants to do it, to just eliminate the intrigue. Like my son doesn't really pull on our cabinets anymore. Yeah. Because it's a no-go. So I mean, that was a pretty mind-blowing learning for us.
Yeah, that's actually the same thing has happened in the kitchen, where David doesn't even bother with the cabinets anymore because they're locked all the time. Yeah. And I'm sure if he tried hard enough, he could figure out how to take those keys and find it. Because sometimes
it's coming.
Yeah, because sometimes we leave the key on the cabinet, like not thinking. But he doesn't open the cabinet. He just grabs the key, and he's very dutiful about this. He'll walk it back over to the dishwasher and stick it back on there. Like that's where that goes. Yeah. And he's kind of turned it into a game. So yeah, definitely like pro tip, childproof your house, do whatever you can. Don't waste any time thinking about it. Just go ahead and do it.
Yeah. I feel like we could have a whole episode about magnets because they're super fun for kids and all forms.
Magnets are wild, man.
Let's go on to the next one. So we have an episode about socializing, which we did back in January. I want to say January 28th was when the episode dropped. So if you want to go check that one out particularly. And we talked about how our kids are interacting with other kids. Yeah. We didn't really give tons of advice particularly, other than just kind of talking about the idea that, it's a good idea. Both of our kids are in daycare, so they kind of socialize all the time. But that's really what I want to focus on with this as I was going back, is that we just kind of maybe took for granted that because they were in daycare, they would be well socialized. We have now started to notice that if he's hanging out with other kids outside of daycare, he really doesn't interact with them directly, or if he does, he doesn't really know how quite to, I'm going to say, behave.
Yeah.
But not in a bad way, right? Like he's not a tantrum kind of a guy. But there was an example just this past weekend where we were at a party and there were some younger kids, and so maybe this was the situation. But when we think about socializing, we forget that they're with babies of their same age, pretty much within a couple months. He was with younger babies that can't even crawl, and so they were the stationary, like 6-7 month old types, and he's 17 months, so he's walking, crawling, doing all that kind of stuff. And he got a little it's not like he got aggressive with them, but he just was playing in a style that might have worked for kids of his age and was not working at all for the little kids because they can't move. They can't really, I'm going to say, defend themselves really well. There was an incident of smacking on the head a couple times. Wow. And he was either trying to, I think, do high five with them, which may have been my fault because I was trying to show these little babies how to high five because it's really cute when kids learn it. And some of them looked like they maybe wanted to learn and were close to doing it, so I felt good about it until my son started high fiving this one kid in the head repeatedly. And then it gets worse. He literally like took her and smacked her head down into the ground at one point. So I'm really sorry, Amelia.
Oh my gosh,
little sweet baby. And then a total accident, but this is another thing with like the amount of power that they have, and by like strength, and I know they're babies, but like the strength they have compared to other age babies is pretty insane. And so there was like a swinging toy that was like attached to like one of those floor things where they look up at the toys and they play with them when they can't move. He just went right over to that and like gave it a good smack, and it went really hard whiplash into another kid's face.
Ooh.
And like it was a solid wood toy, and there was a definite smack, like hitting bone. And so I felt awful. This was terrible. These are like friends of ours whose kid is adorable, and he's just like terrorizing and smacking this one poor kid around. So I don't know that there's a solve for this one just yet. It's just like, socializing, the idea of just trying to do it more is helpful. And if anything, just be on the lookout if you get into a situation where it's kids that are of a different age. We didn't want to intervene, and the other parents are super chill too. We didn't really want to like stop them or like, discipline him for doing it because we wanted them to kind of figure it out. But like just something to really be aware of is that the difference in the age of socialization is a whole different situation, or daycare is a group thing. And if they're one-on-one, it can be very different when it comes to socializing.
Wow. Okay. Those are some really good lessons to take to heart. But I like what you guys are doing where you're not stopping the exposure to other kids. It's kind of like if you keep a dog on a tight leash and you don't let them interact with other dogs at all, they won't learn how to interact with other dogs, and then it'll end up being overly aggressive or overly passive. I think you guys are doing the right thing.
I hope so, because otherwise my son is just gonna it's fine.
So on a slightly more successful note, we have talked several times over the past year about sleep training. This is something that every parent struggles with, and you can be doing everything right, and it still, may not go the way you want it to go. But over the past couple of months, David has kind of made a turn here where he is sleeping through the night, or if he wakes up in the middle of the night, it's very briefly, and there's one thing we can do to fix it. And I just wanted to go back to this to highlight what a couple things that we've said over the past year. The first of which is it's kind of known in parenting circles as, is it the Ferber or the Farber method? I can't remember which of the two it is. Whatever it is, Google it. Even if you spell it wrong, Google will figure it out for you. Google's brilliant like that. But it's the method of sleep training where if your baby wakes up crying or isn't going to sleep, you go in and you don't pick them up. You mentioned this even in the last week or two. You don't pick them up. You kind of comfort them, rub their back, talk to them, soothe them a little bit, and then let them lie back down on their own. And you leave for maybe a minute, and then you come back in and do it again if they haven't stopped crying. And then you gradually space out those visits to the bedroom. And eventually, it may take several weeks to do this, or it may not work at all, like I said. But the idea is that eventually they will learn that they don't need the parent in the room with them to fall back asleep. David has kind of taken this lesson to heart. Something has happened in the past couple of months. I don't think it's anything that we've done because we haven't really changed anything, but he has learned to basically instantly go to bed and fall asleep. One thing actually that my wife did was she bought a really like plushy stuffed fox animal at the store, and he fell in love with it instantly.
Oh, that's nice.
So maybe it is just a matter of once your kid is at that age where he can have like 1 or 2 stuffed animals in the crib with him, get him something really soft, something huggable, because David loves to hug his toys. And get him in there with it, introduce him to it. And he hugs that thing. He's still on his pacifier only at bed, which is something that we're kind of not.
Oh, my God. It's going to be so hard to break.
I know. And we broke him of it. And then we went on vacation and we introduced it back. And it's been, rough since then. But we put him in there. We give him the pacifier. We give him the toy. And he just goes right to bed. And we also have, I would recommend this toy, the VTech. It's a soothing hippo toy. I don't remember the exact model name or number. But it works like a charm for him every night. We'll turn it on. He'll learn to turn it on and off on his own. It'll play a few songs. He'll fall asleep. The nightmare happens when the batteries die in the middle of the night. And he wakes up and he can't get it to sing to him. And then he'll freak out. We'll have to go in and change the batteries at 1 o'clock in the morning, which happened a few nights ago. And it totally threw off my sleep schedule. And it made me so angry. But that's okay. But yeah.
Getting some feelings.
Exactly. It's all coming out. But overall, sometimes, like I said, you could be doing everything right and it still doesn't work, or you can be doing really not much at all and everything works. Kids are just weird like that. But I wanted to highlight that because, maybe there's a few things that, you guys, our listeners, can kind of take from that and try. If you haven't tried it yet, if nothing's working, just try something new and see if it works, even if it's counterintuitive, I guess.
And speaking how things go totally different, we can't have anything in the crib with Noah.
Anything.
He does not care for any of those things. You guys are great. You guys got us the hippo.
Yeah, that's right.
It doesn't work for us.
Wow.
Because he will make like a noise and the hippo is noise activated to turn on, and then that will keep him awake.
Oh.
He never really got to the point where he found it soothing and then went back to sleep. It was always like it was keeping him up kind of a thing. And so the hippo didn't really end up working out for us. And this is just like, this happens. Every kid is completely different. Noah's actually been pretty good because we do the passy thing. Like, I know we're still a couple months behind you guys, but like we're still hard on that passy.
Yeah.
We haven't tried to break it, and I'm afraid to break it because it's just not going to work very well at all. Because his nighttime routine has always been he gets the passy when we're kind of dressing him for bed in his pajamas. We are still using a sleep sack.
Oh, yeah, really?
He loves the sleep sack.
Wow.
I don't know if he needs it, I guess.
Right.
It's probably more about the passy because we've definitely gotten to the point where he uses like a blanket as well.
Yeah.
But like most of the time he doesn't really need the blanket.
Yeah.
And we'll get rid of it. And Noah is like, he moves around a lot in his sleep. I don't know if Dave is the same, but if you just kind of look at him throughout the day and night when he's sleeping, he rolls a ton.
David
so
does
it's
the same
kind of
thing.
impossible for a blanket to keep tabs on him.
Yeah, exactly.
And he doesn't like go get it or anything. He's all about the passy. So the thing that's worked for us, and I've been doing this for a while now, is that I'll give him one passy when I'm getting ready to, to put him down, or even a little bit before as we're kind of ramping him down. And then we'll do the book reading before nighttime. That's worked really well, especially transitioning away from a bottle. If you guys are still in that phase, the book reading worked out really well. I was really surprised.
Nice.
How well he pivoted to that. And then I hide, quote unquote, a second passy in his crib. So the thing that was happening with Noah that he would wake up is like you said, he'd wake up in the middle of the night and he needs something to do to soothe him.
Yeah.
He's never been a big thumbsucker. The hippos and the toys haven't really been working for us yet. And so he just needs to find a passy, and he is gold if he can find it. So I know that he likes to throw his passy. He rolls around. He loses it. So if I hide a second one, he now knows to go looking for that second passy.
There you go.
Because he knows it's there. It's like his extra security blanket.
Yeah.
And so that has helped tremendously with him sleeping through the night.
Wow. And while we're on the subject of pacifiers, hey, listeners, if you've got some tips on how to break your kid at the pacifier when the time comes, please share it.
We are double, tripled down on pacifiers.
Yeah,
like,
we
it's
are
gotten
too.
to a point now where like sometimes he actually just needs to have that second one in his hands before he goes to sleep because he knows it's there and he's going to go grab it even if you don't give it to him. So now every time I go to bed or I put him to bed, it's passy in the mouth, passy in the hand. We're screwed. Yeah,
David does the same thing. Because we're still on the Wubbanub, the one that has the stuffed animal attached to it. So he's got his two. He's got one in his mouth, one in his hand, and he'll just switch as he pleases.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, so it's a game to him, and I don't really know how to break it. So yeah, listeners, if you got some tips, we are all ears.
So the last topic that I was thinking about was around the saga of ear infections, and it's actually a little amusing. I apologize for this, guys. I went back and looked at all of the different episodes, and there were several where ear infections were a part of the topic for the week because of our son and all of his ear troubles with the infections. So apologies if it got a little overwhelming, but there's a lot to learn there and just kind of follow along with the process. If nothing else, just to notice that it's difficult as heck. And it can take a while to figure it out. But I did want to kind of go back because it was such a theme for so many weeks. There was one particular episode on February 18th of this year, 2019, in case people are listening to this in the future. And it really kind of came down to something I wanted to highlight, which is that if you're concerned about something, go ask the doctor. I talked about this in the parenting disagreements episode as well about the eating.
Yeah.
Same thing for anything. And it's not something that I could have told you advice-wise because I was like most people and I'm like, well, when do I go to the doctor? And like, okay, my next appointment's in 3 months or 6 months. I'll just kind of wait, I guess. Or, okay, we've been a couple times for ear infections and, you know, we know that they can take these medicines and then we know that if they go back, they'll go from the baby, you know, strength medicine to the medium strength medicine to the super hard, crazy strength medicine. And then there were times for us, because we did it so many times, we're like, oh, there's so many drugs that we're giving him. Is it really good? You know, the stuff that's like really intense is really intense. Like, do we want to keep doing that? It kind of helps, but it kind of doesn't. Is it making a difference? Like, we had all these thoughts going through our head. And I got to tell you, the only thing that worked was just going back to the doctor again and just keep bringing it up to them, because they won't know that you're going through that struggle of dealing with it over and over and over and over unless you tell them.
Yeah.
And as soon as we started basically displaying to a doctor that like we're like it's a chronic issue, that's the key right there, because you don't probably think about it being chronic, but if you keep going back enough, they will start to talk to you about, okay, this doesn't seem to be going away. And this is what finally broke us. I can tell you guys, I'm knocking on wood as hard as I will knock on everything in the world that is made of wood, probably, because it has been a couple months since we've had any kind of ear infection.
Good for you.
And we've had the tube surgery. If you listen to the episodes we had, we talked about this one specifically in an episode about getting the surgery. That definitely was a difference maker because it stopped him from having pain, but he would still get ear infections.
Yeah.
And it's just the tubes would help it drain, and that's what they're supposed to do. They don't automatically stop them from happening, though. And that was something that we kept dealing with even after the surgery, is that our son would get ear infections so regularly still. There'd be so much drainage. And then we really got into a stuck spot because we're like, well, we've done what we've done max effort with the surgery.
Yeah.
What do we do? And we had to go back to the ENT again, and we had to talk to them, and they were basically telling us, our pediatrician recommended us to go back because she's like, okay, this is a chronic thing. It's not going away. We have to do something different.
Yeah.
And it's not just, medicine or whatever. You have to take it more intense method. And so we went back to the ENT and basically got the advice they cleaned out his ears again, not surgery, but just on the spot. It's not fun, but they basically can suction out all of the whatever's in there. So you start from ground zero, basically, and then you hit it hard with the medication one more time. And I can't remember if we did like 1 or 2 different types of medications before it finally took, but it was like you get back to base, and then you hit it heavy with the medicine again, which at that point we were like, do you do medicine? Is it really having an impact? But because we kind of reset the table and we went in hard with the medicine, what it was is we kept doing it for about an extra week.
Yeah.
We did like 2 weeks of medicine. So like a hard dose, 2 weeks, a long exposure of the medicine to like, the idea was like punch the ear infection the heck out. Yeah. And it worked.
All right.
So like I would have never been thinking of this as the plan. You feel like you're complaining as a parent. You feel like you don't know. You feel like you're unsure. You feel like, you don't want to give them more medicine, blah, blah, blah. They hate it, of course, but it's just like it took like a serious combination of like heavy dosage and long time usage of medicine plus a good rinse out to get the job done. And we probably would have never made that call to even go to the doctor, but thankfully we finally did.
Wow. Yeah. I mean, it's a heck of a saga. Like we went through the ear tube surgery ourselves, and it didn't 100% stop the issue. I think he did get 1 or 2 infections after the surgery. Yeah. But over the past couple of months, that has faded as well. So, if that's something that's on your mind, and you're afraid of like, oh, you got to put him under anesthesia and all this stuff, it's, yes, that's true. But these people know what they're doing, and it's a safe surgery. It's as safe as any other surgery, even for babies. And I mean, I know it doesn't work for everybody, but I think it works for most people. And, just look into it. Don't count it out. So the last topic that I want to revisit this week is we talked on our October 29th, 2018 episode. It was called Going Mental, the Mental Load and Mental Health. We talked about something called the mental load, which is the idea of, who in the relationship is keeping track of everything, who is, having the mental burden of, the baby's doctor appointments and what needs to be done around the house, and how often do we need to get this and that worked on, and what are the baby's teachers' names and that kind of stuff. It's a pretty common thing in today's society for the mother to carry a lot of those burdens. It's just something that has happened. It's been happening for a long time. I think it's gradually shifting and becoming more equal, but it's not there yet. And we talked about ways where, as the dad, you can kind of step up and try and take some of those things so that your wife or partner or whoever it is isn't the one carrying the majority of those things, because it can get really tiring to be the only one keeping track of that kind of stuff. I want to call myself out. That is something that, all these months later, I'm still not very good at. I was thinking about it the other day. Like, my wife is the one who is keeping track. Like, she's the one who's taking the initiative to buy things for David and to try new things and to get the stool, so that he can walk up to wash his hands, and to figure out which potty to get and to buy the potty and then where to put it. And I've kind of collaborated a little bit in those things, but it's been kind of the setup where she'll have the idea, she'll bring it to me, and then I'll say, oh, okay, here's maybe some ideas, some good ones, some not so good ones, and then we'll collaborate from there. But she's definitely taking the lead on everything still. I'm looking back at this and I'm like, this is an area that I really need to work on. Because guys, if you're able to take the initiative on some of those things and kind of say to your wife, okay, let me handle all of this, and then prove that you can handle it. If she doesn't have to worry about that, that's a major stress reduction on her part. And, and that will only have positive effects on your relationship. And yeah, like I said, that's something that I've still got a long way to go in that area. I'm still kind of figuring out, how can I help to keep track of some of this stuff. Like, I was looking back, like a couple of weeks ago, we were talking about car seats. I don't know what brand car seat I've got in my car. Just to be completely honest with you, I don't know the name of that car seat.
Yep.
My wife sometimes talks to me about my daycare teacher, David's daycare teachers, and she'll mention names, and I'm like, yeah, that sounds vaguely familiar, but she knows, since he has started daycare last August, which teachers were in each room, which ones were the good ones and the not so good ones. And I couldn't tell you. I know that there's, a this and a that. I don't know when he had them or if I liked them, because I would see them when I pick them up in the afternoon, and then that's it. So that's something that I'm struggling with, and I know that probably the majority of dads listening to this are either struggling with this or they haven't even thought about it. So guys, if you are the one that hasn't even thought about it, definitely start thinking about it and take the initiative, because you will see benefits in your relationship, in the level of stress in the household, and ultimately on your kid as well. It's only going to have positive effects everywhere if you start trying to take the lead in those zones.
Yeah, and I'll say that applies to 100% of the dads in this room even, because you're exactly right. You're hitting me where I didn't think I was going to get hit this morning, because I wasn't thinking about that at all. But you're totally right. My wife is 100% pretty much the person who's seeking out new toys, new things of engaging, staying on top of what other people are talking about for different kind of things to interact with. She recently was the one who came up with the idea to get the learning tower, which I talked about, I think, in a previous episode. Maybe,
I think you did, maybe not.
I just talked to you. If not,
we'll talk about it next week.
Yeah, we'll talk about it next week. But, something to play with him in the kitchen, getting like our first Play-Doh set, all these kinds of things. It's not just toys, but like she's focused on those kinds of things. If I'm going to give us credit in any way, I'm going to say that I just know that as a person, it doesn't show up in the parenting column, but I think it still applies well. I'm just very good at helping with the mental load of like the house stuff.
That's good.
So chores, picking up, cleaning, things of that nature. I suck at laundry, but to be fair, we both do, so it's okay. It's a group fail.
Yeah.
And, I'm just better at that, and it's not an excuse because I don't want to replace the parenting side of things, but I'm just going to say that we're both failing at that, Jesse, so, good for calling us on it, and we can do better I mean, so many things went into my mind. It's amazing the reaction I had when you said that, because I was thinking, well, my job is hard and it's stressful and I don't have time to think about my son while I'm at work. And then I was like, oh, God, that sounds awful. And there's just so many other emotions that kind of go with it.
Yeah.
And then I was trying to justify myself like I just did, of being like, well, I'm good at other things. And it's, yes, be good at some things at least. Let's all hope that we're good at things. We all have strengths, and that can be fine. But it doesn't mean that you don't want to try to take off the mental load a little bit on some of the parenting stuff. So, I already mentioned many times that, even today, that my wife, read this article or read that story, and we talked about the eating thing, and she figured that whole thing out. So I don't know. We just have to be better in tuned with it. We just have to be out there looking a bit more. I mean, it's maybe just not enough to kind of clock in and clock out of work, and then you come home and like only then do you focus on it.
Oh yeah, yeah, and and all of this is not to guilt trip anybody. We've never been about that on this podcast. We're all trying, right? And if you look at where we are now versus maybe the standard across the world for fatherhood, or maybe in generations past, we've come a long way. Like, we're altogether more involved and more intentional, I think, as dads. And we've got areas we need to improve on. And you're more than one thing at home, right? I mean, you're a dad, you're a husband, you're a roommate, you're a homeowner. You might have some habits that you need to pick up on that maybe make you not such a great roommate, but that doesn't mean you're a bad husband or a bad dad. It just means you're not the best roommate. So it's not to, like I said, it's not to shame anybody. It's just now's the time to kind of start thinking about where can I share that load, because if you are honest with yourself, you're probably not doing as much as you could be doing.
Yep.
So while we're on this topic, hey guys, listeners, if there is something that we touched on that you're struggling with, or something that you've got a really great tip for us, or some other area where you are just falling behind as a parent and you don't really know how to get back on track, reach out to us. Shoot us an email, send us a comment, a message on Facebook, Instagram, DM us on Twitter, like whatever you got to do. And we'll talk to you about it. That's one thing that Brandon and I have, I think, done a pretty good job with interacting with our followers. If you send us a message, 100% of the time we'll answer you, and we'll get into a good conversation with you, because we're dads and we love talking about dad stuff. So reach out to us, kind of give us some fodder to maybe even talk about next week. Speaking of which, Brandon, what are we going to talk about next week?
So we're going to talk about the topic of toys. What are our kids playing with? What toys are they enjoying? What toys have they not been enjoying? How are we kind of dealing with, what are we going to call attention deficit disorder, or just infant disorder, where they just don't have a lot of attention span?
Yeah.
And we'll get into all things toys.
That's awesome. And Brandon, in between this week and next week, if our listeners want to reach out to us with questions or comments like I suggested, where can they find us?
You've got a lot of options. Avail yourself of all of them. Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. You can find us at Dadsplaining Podcast. Please give us a like or a follow on those pages. You can reach out to us directly at dadsplainingpodcast@gmail.com if you want to submit a question, a topic, you want to ask us any questions privately, anonymously, whatever you want to do. And then check out this and every episode anywhere you get your podcasts. And as I mentioned at the top of this episode, something we haven't really given a lot of focus, but we would love for you to do, please subscribe to whatever app you're using for those podcasts, so that you just get them in every single week.
Exactly. And exclusive shout out to our Apple Podcast listeners. I know you guys are out there. I know you are.
Yep.
But one thing that you could really do to help us out is leave us a review and a rating on Apple Podcasts.
Yep.
We know we've got a lot of listeners on that platform, but we haven't gotten a lot of ratings or reviews. So, I know you guys are tuning in each week. Subscribe to us if you could. And please leave us a review, even if it's a suggestion, even if it's something that you want us to talk about. We love reading these, and we'll read yours. We'll read it on the podcast next week. So until next time, I'm Jesse.
And I'm Brandon.
And Brandon, did I tell you that I wrote a book on reverse psychology?
No, how'd that go?
Yeah, please don't read it. Reverse psychology.
Hey,
because now you will read it.
Now I'm going to read it. Okay, there we go.
Wow, that one was a fail.
No, you stumped me. It was The Thinker.
All right. We'll see you guys next time.
Like current events and want to be the smartest among your friends? Then the Power Pod is the show for you.
The Power Pod is a weekly recap show where we cover the current events of the week.
It's a show where we're not afraid to get serious.
And we're not afraid to have some fun.
So try us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Play, Stitcher, the WSB Radio app, WSBRadio.com, Stitcher, CastBox. Okay. Anywhere there are podcasts, we are there. So power up with the Power Pod.